What is up, cool kids? I'm Cool Trainer Gavin, and today we are starting day 2 of our 2-week long foray, if you will, into Ultra and Ultra Moon content. Now, if you saw either my video yesterday or my update video on Monday, you'll know that we are doing this mostly because we can't do an Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon Let's Play on the channel. Instead, I'm putting out just some content about thoughts, reflections about Sun and Moon this week, and then next week thoughts and reflections about Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. So today, we're talking about things that I liked and disliked about Sun and Moon, and then we're going to be talking about things that they can improve slash get rid of, potentially, for Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. So with that, let's get started. Man, it's been a while since I've done like a super edited video like this, so if I like miss a cut or something like that, I apologize. But getting into the likes, the length. First thing on the list is length. I thought it was a pretty lengthy for a Pokemon game. It wasn't too fast, wasn't too slow. It didn't take like 40 hours to complete unless you really went hard and caught every Pokemon in every route, talked to every single NPC to see if they would give you something. And even when you did that, I feel like it wasn't too bad. As once again, how hard you looked for items, how hard you searched for that one Pokemon that you really wanted. It could take you anywhere from 20 to 30 hours, which is pretty typical for a Pokemon game, if not a little bit on the longer side, which I personally liked. I'm the kind of person who, I'm not like Nappy where I talk to every single NPC hoping they'll give me something. But if I'll usually talk to a handful of people in a given town just to see if they'll give you something. So usually, for me, a Pokemon game takes about 22 to 26 hours to complete. This one was a little bit over that, around 26 hours, 27-ish, to complete just like the main story of the game. So from length, that sort of leads us into pacing. Now, like, the whole game may have been, I'll say average 25 hours long, between people just like speeding through it just to get to competitive stuff toward the end, or people playing it like Nappy, searching for everything and finding everything. I feel like this one has an asterisk next to it on my list, because after the first island, I thought pacing was really, really good. It had like a whole bunch of action stuff on the second island rather, where you had those 3 trials pretty much back to back to back, with minor Team Skull stuff in the middle between each of them. And then once you get to the third island, you get a lot more Team Skull stuff. Because there's only 2 trials. I believe there's only 2 trials, right? Because there's 1 on the first island, there's 3, second island, so there's 4, and there were 7 trials. So then 2, yeah, and there was only 1 on the last island, so there were 2 on the third island. I thought that they were broken up pretty evenly between doing stuff with Team Skull and Aether Foundation, and then the final island, pacing kind of slowed down a little bit, just because there wasn't as much to do. Basically, you went to Executor Island, you did some stuff with Hapu. Hapu? That was her name? I'm having a total moment. Hapu? Yes. Yeah, the kahuna on the last island, Hapu. Wow. And then you did all the stuff with Solgaleo / Lunala, and Team Skull, Lucamine, all those shenanigans. And now, I said this has an asterisk next to it because, I'll talk about this more in the next section, but pacing on the first island, as pretty much everybody can attest to, is dead. But we'll just move on and table that until the dislike section. So next up is art. Sun and Moon have been by far the most aesthetically pleasing Pokemon games that I have ever seen. I love the nostalgia of Gen 1 and Gen 2, and Gen 5 to me just they did the really darker, warmer tones as opposed to the bright popping neon stuff. I feel like they did that really well. Gen 6 was kind of iffy, and Gen 3 was also kind of iffy to me. I get what they were trying to do because it's tropical for a lot of parts of Hoenn, but they really did Sun and Moon justice by on the 3DS by making the colors really pop in pretty much everything. In the battles, the trainer sprites behind you. I know some people say oh, that lags out the game in double battles, which I completely agree. But I thought it was just something really neat to have, something that you wouldn't think that you'd want that until you see it. Then you're like, man, that looks really cool. And I could do without it in like, you know, VGC, because that does lag the game out. But like in just like in game, I think I love it, honestly, especially watching your all the like special effects of like the Z moves, animations and stuff, although those lag out the game too. I really like just all of the art, all of the animations. Some of the 3D models from Gen 6 were cleaned up. Some of them desperately needed to be. And I just really like all of the animations of all the new Pokemon as well. I think the art was... I don't think the art could have been improved at all until I saw these trailers for Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, which we'll talk about later. Another piece with an asterisk on it is the cutscenes, which is sort of related to the art. The cutscenes, visually, beautiful. So much better looking, as should be expected, than the just like the core gameplay itself. The opening cutscene of Lily running through the Aether Foundation was beautiful. All the stuff toward the end of the game when you're doing stuff with Solgaleo / Lunala looks, again, amazing. Again, that has an asterisk because there was slightly, very much, way too many of them. But again, that's something we'll talk about in the dislike section. Another thing that was like sort of really refreshing to me was the difficulty. You know, I've heard some people say it was like, oh, this was way too easy, you know, blah, 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 blah. It's a kid's game. It's not supposed to be like, you know, Dark Souls, where you know, die every 10 seconds. But I really think, to me, this was one of the harder Pokemon games that I've played. It's like core Pokemon games, not like ROM hacks or anything. And like, I not blacked out. Is it blacked out? Because I know they go back and forth between blacked out, whited out. But I blacked out, whited out, whatever, twice in just like normal gameplay, which has like not happened once since like the first time I played Gen 4. At least in like I said, in a normal Pokemon game. I whited out against the Lurantis in the Malos trial, and against Lusamine in the final battle against her, because like all Pokemon were boosted, and I was really not prepared for it. But like just like that, and just like the trials were like, once again, not like super difficult, like the Wishy-Washy trial. I almost whited out against that too, just because Wishy-Washy has insane stats, and just to boost, I think it boosted its defense, I want to say. Defense or attack or something. And that, like, I think the difficulty was pretty spot on, considering how easy I thought, you know, Oris and X and Y were. This one was just like a quick little one. All the Gen 1 references, I think there were probably two main ones that I was, like, when I found them, I like, geeked out. There was the Nugget Bridge on the 3rd island, in the, like, Gyarados Park or whatever it was called, where, like, all of them had, I don't remember if they had the exact Pokemon that they had on Nugget Bridge. I don't think they did, but they said the exact lines that they said on Nugget Bridge way back in Gen 1. And the person at the end even was like, you should join Team Rocket. And then at the end they were like, oh, I'm just kidding you, have a big nugget. So that was probably the biggest one. Then the second one was, where was it? It was on the 2nd island. Or no, it was on the 1st island in the mall. When you go immediately to your left, below the stage thing that they had there, there's two people standing by a poster. And the poster has a Team Rocket R on it, and if you talk to them, oh wow, excuse me, they say like, oh, there's not a button under this thing, and then they battle you, and it's like a good just like little throwback to Gen 1, which I personally loved. And the last thing on my list of likes is the Pokemon. This is like an uncommon opinion, but I loved all of the Gen 7 Pokemon. Both competitively and like aesthetically. Like Incineroar, all the starters, I said this in my video yesterday, all the starters look amazing. So many of the Pokemon are just so well designed, like uniquely designed. I think they went really hard because these are the last titles on the 3DS. There's basically Pokemon for everybody. There's Pokemon like Stuffle that are cute and adorable. Then there's Pokemon like Incineroar that are like really badass looking. Will I get demonetized for that? Hashtag I'm already demonetized. There's a lot of different visually, like a lot of different kinds of Pokemon. I think they all fit really well together in this region. And as a competitive battler, a lot of them, like, it didn't give us a lot of like top tier like OU threats, but there's a lot of Pokemon that are like really dangerous in lower tiers. If you look at a big one is Araquanid. Araquanid's all the way down in RU, even though its Liquidation has the same base power thanks to its ability as some Z moves. And that's only gonna get more dangerous when in this game it gets access to Sticky Webs. So I don't see that pushing Araquanid up. It might push it up into UU, but I kind of doubt it. Just because it is so reliant on just like the one thing that it kind of does, which is just like trapping things, toxicking them, and then just hitting them with Liquidation after Liquidation. But that's just one example. There are a lot of different examples of Pokemon that are really dangerous in lower tiers, as well as Pokemon like the Tapu that just like completely changed the way OU is played. Alright, so now we're transitioning sort of into the dislikes portion. Things that like, I guess dislikes kind of a strong word, because like it's things that like I was just kind of annoyed at the time, or things that I'm like, man, they really could have just done this so much differently. The first, I'll just put them together. The two that had asterisks next to them in the like section, the pacing and the cutscenes. Like I said, after First Island, pacing was, I really liked the pacing. It kept you busy while not doing the same thing over and over and over. But at the same time, the First Island, like, I've only played through it once, like all the way through Sun and Moon once, but I've started like probably 4 or 5 different files, including that one. So that's like 3 or 4 different times where I started a game, and I'm just like, I just can't get through the First Island. It just takes way too long, not nearly enough happens. And like the tutorial part of the game is so long. The entire First Island is tutorial, which I think is completely ridiculous. Like by this point, I think all you need in a Pokemon game for a tutorial is battling tutorial, catching tutorial, something explaining the island trials, and then that's it. First Island just does not have enough on it to justify taking up so much time. So it really slows the pacing down at the beginning. And then to go along with that, cutscenes. I think there were just too many of them, / they were too long. Like you don't need a cutscene for every time you meet an important character for them to just like show them like standing there for a second, smiling, and then just waving that awkward wave that they do, or every time you meet somebody on the side of the road, just alola. That's just really unnecessary to me, and I think if you would cut out all those, the one that comes to my mind is, I mean, it's not really a cutscene just as much as some pieces of like dialogue as well, because like the thing that comes to mind immediately is when you get to the second island for the first time and you meet Olivia and Mallow. Like Mallow takes up at least like 10 seconds, which like objectively isn't a lot of time, but like when you meet her, she's like, and then she talks for a little bit, then she waves at you and Kukui, turns literally just like this, waves at Hao and Lily, and then goes away. I'm like, that was just completely unnecessary. Like you programmed that into the game, but yet Game Freak didn't have time to program anything in with Zygarde in Gen 6, but that's a different thing. But yeah, just cutscenes in general. I think everybody has a complaint about Sun and Moon. Despite how visually good they look, there are just too many of them, / they were too long. Probably the biggest or like second biggest thing for me on my dislikes is Festival Plaza, and I feel like that's pretty much the same for everybody. I don't know one single person who's like, yeah, Festival Plaza's awesome. Festival Plaza's really good. I'm glad they did that. I don't know anybody who's ever said that. Like, it's buggy. It's such a downgrade from the PSS from Gen 6. It's like, I've only used it to Wi-Fi battle a handful of times, and only once did I not have a problem with it. And like, I live at a college. Colleges, dorms have, like, well, my college, anyway, has pretty good Wi-Fi. Like, it does not disconnect me. But then, like, Festival Plaza, I just can't. I don't really know how else to describe it besides it's just awful. It's hard to get around. The like, shops in Festival Plaza are, to me, completely useless. Other than, like, making the custom clothing at the dye shops, that's pretty much it. So Festival Plaza is just bad, and unfortunately it is coming back in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. So there's not really much I can do about that, but we'll talk about that in the discussions part in a couple minutes. Another thing that I just kind of not really like super dislike was like the leveling. It just seemed like wild Pokemon didn't scale at the right like proportion to your level, or to the level of the like the trial captains slash Team Skull bosses, or not really Team Skull bosses, but to Lusamine anyway, because like that and Team Skull. So I'm gonna say with leveling just between the wild Pokemon and Team Skull, they're just a lot lower than they should be, which if you watch my Gold Kulak, I complained about that like almost every episode. How the trainers should be a lot higher level. So like, Team Skull would have Pokemon about the same, if not a little bit lower, I think, than the, and don't quote me on that, that's just what I remember from playing through it once a year ago. But I remember it being, like, Team Skull having Pokemon the same, or even a little bit lower than the wild Pokemon, which made absolutely no sense to me. And then you get to Guzma, and Guzma has Pokemon, 10 levels above them. Which, like, it makes sense because he's their boss, but why not just increase everybody by 5 levels? I don't think that would be too hard. Like, I don't think that would, like, break the game and make it too hard. Plus, when you do need to grind, like, I had to grind a little bit, after Lusamine beat me. I had to leave Ultra Space, go grind, come back. And it just took so long, because the wild Pokemon don't scale at the right ratio that they should. And I hope that's something that they'll fix, especially with Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon being longer. I definitely think that they will have to do that, otherwise it'll just make it just like infuriatingly hard. So the last thing on this list is what I said was sort of tied with Festival Plaza for being the thing that I disliked the most about these games, and that was the post-game was basically non-existent. The extent of the post-game was you battle Dexio, he gives you the Mega Ring and an Alakazite. Then you go to the Battle Tree, which is like 2 steps from that encounter, and you fight Red and Blue, which was awesome. But that was the extent that they were in the game. That was all that they did. You battled them one time outside of the Battle Tree, and then you have to fight your way up to them in the Battle Tree. And like, you could have done so much more with that. Like, I just don't understand how they could make, in my opinion, it's probably my favorite storyline of a Pokemon game. Despite what you want to say about Team Skull being a bad team, or Lusamine being a weird villain, which she was, but I thought she was a very good villain. Or the Ultra Beast being weirdly in and out of the storyline, whatever you want to say. I really liked it. And then the post-game just hits a brick wall. It hits a UB assembly and just stops. And like, yeah, it provides you like a semi-quick way to get, the battle items, like the power weights, good held items for competitive stuff, but like, I personally want more than that. And luckily that segues into predictions / what I want to happen for Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. Now the post-game of Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon has been compared to the post-game Pokemon Platinum, which was probably the best post-game in my opinion. That I would say that and Emerald probably the best post-game, just because Emerald has Battle Frontier was the first instance of that, and it was really cool. It just gave you endless stuff to do. But Platinum gave you the whole separate area of Sinnoh, way up in the top right corner of it. We gave you like 3 new areas, new legendary Pokemon to catch that I don't believe you could catch before. You could rebattle gym leaders from other gens. You could do a lot of different stuff in Pokemon Platinum. And they said that this is roughly the same as that, which I'm super excited for. As well as making it longer. They said it's supposed to be like twice as long as Sun and Moon, which hopefully they make it a little bit more I don't really want to say it like that, sort of more like open world RPG style, I guess, is what I'm trying to say there. Because they did give a lot of, like, side quest type stuff, where like, hey, go catch me this Pokemon, and then, show me your Pokedex, and I'll give you stuff. I thought that was super cool. I don't know, maybe they'll do more of that, and maybe just increase the prizes from something other than like, hey, here's 10 Quick Balls, or here's 10 Great Balls. Maybe give us some like actual money or something like that, or give us pieces of clothing. I think that would be really cool, like a piece of clothing that you could only get through doing that. I think that would be really cool. Cutscenes. I really think that they could make. I definitely think that. I mean, we've all seen the trailers. There's still a lot of cutscenes. You can already tell there's gonna be a lot of cutscenes. I just think if they make better use of them, like I think the whole cutscene of like you protecting Nebby from the Spearow in Sun and Moon was like cinematically really good, and it set the tone for some of the early parts of the game. But that cutscene is probably at least that's probably exaggeration. I'd say between a minute and a half and 2 minutes, which in my opinion is too long. Because you have to like get to where you're like leaning over Nebby, protecting it, then Nebby builds up his anger, explodes, and Tapu Koko comes down, saves you, swoops you up, and then deposits you, does his little spin thing, discharges some electricity, and flies away. Which, like I said, it looks really good. It's just kind of unnecessarily long. But I feel like if they just make better use of their cutscenes, I think it would just make the whole experience a lot better. Plus, that frees up more time, pacing-wise, for actually playing the game. Like I said in the dislikes part, Festival Plaza is still around. I guess the only thing that we can ask for at this point is get rid of the bugs, make it more stable, add a better player search system, which is what PSS stood for, I'm pretty sure. But like, even if like you and somebody else have each other's friend codes registered and you're both online at the same time, it's still like really hard to find them on the Festival Plaza, which is really ridiculous. So as long as, I feel like if they just make that better, it's like searching for players better, and I feel like people won't have as much to complain about, which is, I guess, all you can hope for Festival Plaza at this point. Like I said before, the art of Sun and Moon was beautiful, and it only looks like it's getting better from here, just from the cutscenes that we've seen and the small amount of gameplay footage that we have seen. It looks so much better, but that can be a good or a bad thing depending on what system you have. If you're playing it on one of the original 3DSs, you're not going to see the benefits as much, and in fact, it's probably going to lag your game out a little bit. Whereas if you have some of the newer ones, whether the new 3DS, new 3DS XL, or the new 2DS, it's going to look fantastic. It's not going to lag your game out, probably at all. But I think, for me, I have one of the new ones, so it's not going to be that big of a problem for me. I could definitely see it being sort of a problem for other people, though, so it's kind of a 50-50 between a good and a bad. To me, it's much more of a good. Minigames. I'm really excited for, mostly for the Mantine Surf minigame, just because I feel like it's going to be a lot more effective way of getting, like, points. I don't know if they're using that for battle points, but that's how you get move tutors. They did release that is how you get move tutors, or get points for move tutors, rather. So I think that will be, hopefully, faster than grinding your way through the battle tree, especially when the battle tree cheats and gives, Shell Smash Komo'os, which Komo'o definitely should have got, but Komo'o got a lot of new toys, so I'm not really going to complain. But I think it'll be a lot easier. That, and I'll play with the Alola Photo Club maybe once. I'm not a huge fan, but I bet there's some people who are, and who are pretty excited for it. So that is pretty much all I have for my likes, dislikes, and discussion about what they can do to make Sun and Moon, or Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, better than Sun and Moon, which I think they almost undoubtedly will be, just as a combination of the better art, longer storyline, better post-game, and the Pokédex being so much bigger, as well as having all the legendaries. Well, almost all the legendaries. We'll talk about that in partially in tomorrow's episode, which I'm going to talk about some competitive stuff, mostly since it's the format that I'm most familiar with is VGC. So we're going to be talking about how all the introduction of these legendaries and other different Pokemon will affect the VGC scene, which it undoubtedly will. So if you are excited to talk about some competitive stuff, keep an eye out for that tomorrow, and potentially drop a thumbs up down below. Let me know your guys' thoughts for what you liked or disliked about Pokemon Sun and Moon, and what you think they can do better between this and Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon coming out in 2 days. I'm super hyped. But if you enjoyed this video as much as I did, please like and or subscribe. Follow me on Twitter at CoolTrainerGav. And until next time, smile later.